A couple years ago, I campaigned with the governor going up and down the state to ask Californians to invest in rebuilding California's infrastructure. And the governor was marvelous. He made people feel connected. He made people feel that by investing in this state, by spending their money now, we would be enhancing the life quality of Californians for the future, for grandkids, for generations to come. People responded to that. They responded to him. The legislature put the bonds together, but frankly, without the governor acting as the sort of supreme salesperson, would it ever happen? Voters passed every bond, even those that the pundits said we wouldn't pass. And it was because the governor was challenging California to be better. And this budget and its reasoning, candidly, is very disappointing. It's really a budget beneath this great state of California. It's kind of a subprime budget, risky borrowing for what we can't afford. It's really an admission of failure. The governor got elected, and we had a large deficit in this state, and he promised to make things different. But he soon fell into a pattern of borrowing himself. He borrowed from schools, from transportation, from local government, from pensions. It was borrowing the same way that his predecessor found it necessary in order to sustain the state. But the lottery proposal that he unveiled today seems to me is the kind of worst kind of market speculation. Worse even than the speculation that caused the housing collapse in the subprime debacle that caused millions of Americans to lose their homes. By the way, last year's budget included the sale of the Ed Fund. It was priced at $1 billion. The governor now has moved that sale 2 years into the future. And I think the reason is the investment banker was Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns, of course, went bankrupt trying to profit off of the subprime mortgage industry. So when you're talking about where you're going and what you're going to do, someone says past performance is the best judge of future performance. And we might want to look at how things have gone there in the past. What I'm most disturbed about, I believe, with this budget is that it is kind of, hey, California, you can have it all, and now gaming interests and gaming revenues will pay for good schools, a health care system, public safety. It's not unlike Countrywide telling people you can have this house for no money down and interest-only payments. That's where people crashed and burned, and that's exactly what it seems to me that we may be offering Californians here. In January, the governor said he wanted California to be like Arkansas. I thought he was kidding. But now, with what we're proposing here, particularly with the heavy cuts to health and human services, Arkansas could be the envy of California. It's really time for Californians to be faced with the challenge that they are, I believe, and always have been equipped to meet. It's not time to evade the problem. It's time to rally and summon to us the very best this state has to offer. We worship at the altar of diversity. We always talk about how proud we are to be in a state that is more diverse and has more opportunity for everyone than in the history of any other place on the face of the earth. Well, it's time to challenge people to do that. The voters have already figured it out, in my judgment. I, too, have campaigned the state with the governor. I don't think they've changed their minds dramatically from 2 years ago to now. I'll tell you what they know. They know that our economy is in trouble. They know we're in a recession. They know that they're paying $4 a gallon for gas, and they may, in fact, be paying $5 a gallon for gas. And I have not met too many people who believe that that's ever going to become $2 a gallon in gas. People are very sensitive. They are also very mindful that they may be getting laid off. But for whatever happening out there, perhaps I go the way many others have gone. So what they need to hear from us, it seems to me, from our leaders is, they want to know, how do we make our schools better? How do we become more competitive, not less competitive? How do we give your children a greater opportunity than I had growing up as a native California? I think what the governor is offering is kind of a resignation. He's saying that we have really, the glory days of California are behind us. This is the best we can hope for. When you're talking about putting a cap on spending, an artificial cap on spending, reminds me of, and I may have told you this before, there used to be a guy named Jesus Alou that played baseball for the Giants in the 60s. And Jesus had a wild swing. Things would be going to the backstop, he'd be swinging. Orlando Cepeda said that the reason was Jesus Alou used to make up his mind the night before which pitches he was going to swing at in the game. Well, it seems to me to say, let's just put an artificial cap and borrow money now to get to that cap is really telling Californians, if you like what you got, enjoy it, because we are at the high water mark. Democrats are not going to accept this budget. We are not going to accept it. I reject its defeatism and its pessimism. We will not support a budget that inflames rather than calms the fear and the anger that exists out there in the voting public. This is not a bipartisan or a post-partisan budget. It is a pale white flag being raised in the state of California. It is a eulogy, if you will, for the once great state. So we're going to work with our allies. We're going to work with our colleagues across the aisle to put together a more responsible budget that really looks at the history of this great state, the people of this great state, our resiliency and our strength. We can do better, and I am hopeful that as we begin to have these conversations with the governor, that he'll soon embrace the same philosophy with the same energy and enthusiasm and talk about rebuilding California by meeting the challenges that we have today. The governor today looked like someone that I didn't recognize. There was no enthusiasm for what he was saying. He seemed to be defensive at what he was proposing. He's much better than that. When he's out there selling California, he's the best I've ever seen in this state. So hopefully together we'll put something that is a better vision for California where people understand that now's the time to sacrifice and they'll be willing to do it. We can be better, and dare I say, you can bet on it. I also don't like the image that California is facing its essential responsibilities at the hands of gamblers. Bad enough we securitized tobacco, and now we're going for every vice that we can find in order to basically do something that is a very precarious. In the final analysis, you put this thing on the ballot, and who's going to pay to support this on the ballot to explain what's going on? Wall Street? I'll guarantee you it's dead there. And if the tribes, I think the governor was not quite, he minimized the response that the gaming tribes would have. Of course they're nervous. How do you give anybody the lease, sell, otherwise give the lottery over to Wall Street investment bankers and not assume that they want the growth potential to increase the rate of return? So this is just flawed from the beginning to the end. Getting it to the ballot would be hard enough. Passing it, I think, would be mission impossible. I think, we have been told that we have a budget crisis and that we're not going to have any money. And so what I hope we'll be able to do is to provide a responsible alternative, hopefully one that our colleagues, Republican colleagues, will embrace. But I would not concede for a moment that we won't get this budget done on time, but it's going to take us a while to figure out exactly. This is a very cleverly drafted budget, and but if you look at the big picture, some of the things that I said, we can do better, and I look forward to going out there with the governor and explaining to people in the Inland Empire, in Modesto, up north, let them understand what we're going to do, why it's important for us to do, and why it's good for this state. From
a very technical point of view, I think this budget is just dishonest and irresponsible. And it's just, it does use gimmicks. It does overborrow. It is much more of the same. And I think what's most frustrating, as Senator Perata said, is we've seen this governor do better and be able to sell California and have a positive vision for the state. And what we have here is sort of, well, we can't do anything. I mean, it's a total giving up. It doesn't acknowledge what people have already done in terms of the rainy day fund. We did a rainy day fund. He skipped that. When he talked about all the different propositions over the last 5 years, he skipped over Prop 57. We did create a rainy day fund. We did put money in it, and it all got spent this year because it rained too soon for that rainy day fund to be able to accommodate it. You know, it's not good for the economy. Governor said, and I think we've said all year, you know, it's not good for the economy. We've got to be careful if you are raising revenues in different ways, and to not over-impact the economy. But it's also not good for the economy to close schools, to close hospitals, to tell the poorest people in the state they don't have enough money to spend on food and rent. That is not good for the economy either. We know that lower-income folks are the ones who do spend. And because they need to spend every dime they get, to lower people's wages to the minimum wage, that's not good for the economy. To lower people who are doing in-home supportive services that save money for the state in the long run, that's not good for the economy either. And I think we do have to take an economic view of this budget and not ignore what the economics and the economic downturn and spiral that we could get into with these kinds of disinvestments and ignoring California's future. To wager all of 30 years worth of lottery proceeds to take it in 2 or 3 years and just, basically say, I don't care what happens after I'm termed out. I term out the same year the governor does. But I just don't think it's fair to leave that kind of thing behind. The need to save money in the good years, as he's talked about, is a good one. And most of the money that we didn't save was from tax cuts that nobody wants to talk about restoring, including the tax shift that the governor is most favored of, the one that asks for me and my personal income tax and sales tax to pay the value of his Hummer. I'm tired of that. I think the voters resent it. He went to real different town halls than I did all winter, because all spring I've been going to town halls and talking about the budget, and everywhere I went people said, we do want a responsible California, we do want to invest in our children, and a lot of folks said, and we are willing to pay a little more to make that happen.